Weight Watchers now offers access to affordable GLP-1s.
Weight Watchers has everything I need, from weight loss medications to nutrition support and help with my side effects.
With our program, our members are losing more weight with expert nutrition and side effect support.
Weight Watchers prescribing GLP-1 medications. It's been life-changing.
Better results, expert support, lose more weight, make it last. Get started for as low as $25 at WeightWatchers.com.
All medications require eligibility and prescription. First month as low as $25 with a 12-month Med Plus plan. Does not include the cost of GLP-1 medications.
If you're a podcast host, listen up, this one's for you. My name is Allie Jackson. I'm the host of Finding Mr. Height, a dating and relationship podcast that I've been doing for 4 years now, sharing my positive and practical approach to dating that's built on my own life experience. And I wanted to share another experience that I've had, my secret behind monetizing my show. It's called Red Circle, and I was just telling my colleague about how much I love their platform. With Red Circle, not only am I getting a seamless hosting experience, but I also love the support I receive in ad sales. It's not just typical ad sales either. It's targeted opportunities based on my show and my life. And the platform is super simple. You just set your preferences and Red Circle matches you with sponsors that align with your show. You can vet every opportunity and their platform gives you great analytics. More recently too, my Red Circle team has brought me opportunities outside of my podcast on social media to really augment the podcast partnerships, bring them full circle. I just can't recommend them enough. If you want to give it a try, go to redcircle.com to get your free trial. That's redcircle.com for a free trial.
You're listening to the Think Unbroken podcast, and I'm your host, Michael Unbroken. I'm an author, speaker, coach, and advocate for adult survivors of childhood trauma and abuse. In this podcast, you will learn how to transform your trauma into triumph, turn breakdowns into breakthroughs, and go from victim to being the hero of your own story. You can learn more at thinkunbrokenpodcast.com, and of course, check us out on Apple Podcasts and Spotify at Think Unbroken Podcast. It would seem hard to not agree that we live in the loneliest time probably ever. We are also connected with our cell phones and our devices, our smart TVs, and soon to be our smart pants. But yet we can't seem to connect with each other almost at all in real life. There is a true loneliness epidemic that is taking place that is impacting people mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, and financially. And every single day in this country and in the world, we are becoming more afraid of each other in a way that it's very divisive to even be a human being. We have a hard time breaking bread with people who don't see the way that we see. We have an even more difficult time being friends with people who don't see the world the way that we see. And I'm excited for today's guest, Gabor Kadas, as we're going to break down and talk about how we actually can overcome this loneliness epidemic, how we can be more connected to each other, and most importantly, how we can stop being virtual friends and start being real friends. Gabor, my friend, thank you for being on the show. I'm really excited to dive in this with you today.
Thank you for having me.
Let's start at the beginning of what we're seeing right now. How do you think that we've kind of arrived at this place that people feel so alone and so isolated?
I think the short answer is technology is misleading us, creating a falsehood of friendship, a false belief. You and me are sharing a screen, hundreds of miles away from each other. And that's sort of misguiding people in the belief that they have friends who are on the screen, who are associated with them on various social media. But most of the people, I don't think they actually know the people who they like as friends or say they are friends because they never met them in real life.
Here's what I'm thinking about, because in this moment, I think we all kind of know that. Where did it really go wrong? Is it just simply technology? Is there a deeper level to this that we need to understand from a psychological standpoint?
Yes, if you go back in time to the Stone Age, human beings were in groups. They were never alone. They formed various groups in caves. They did hunting together, etc. So from the zero time, people needed to be with one another. And it's only perhaps the last 30 years or so where technology, at its initial glance, perhaps seemed to have replaced the need to be with people. But genetically speaking, we're encoded to meet people in real life, and meeting them virtual on the screen creates an illusion, like a magician's illusion, that, we have friends, that we're not alone. But really what we need to be is we need to be with other people, not on the screen, but in real life. And technology in the last 30 years created an environment that falsely made us believe that we have friends when we don't actually have friends. All we have is somebody on the other side of the screen.
Yeah, and it's funny because I feel that impact even myself sometimes, and as a person who has his own company and I work from wherever I happen to be that day, and I have team members who are all over the world. One of the things that I find very difficult is that idea of connection. And I see that happening more and more, especially as we move more towards a remote working kind of world. I mean, I have people who, and this is just because of the nature of how it is, but I have people who've worked for me for years and I've never had dinner with them, right? And I think that that's just a truth of the reality of how things are. But even within that, I see so many people who they make almost no effort to go out into the world and be a part of something. It's almost like we've become afraid of going outside.
Yes, because you believe you have friends, so you don't need to go outside. And then when you perhaps attempt to go outside, meet people online or whatever, you may not even get as far as meeting them because it turns out that it was a false profile to start with. And also because all the news about the world in general is that the mistrust that is created between individuals who do not know each other simply because of general news stories, people are afraid. And that's the truth. People are afraid to go out and meet new people because they have no idea who they are meeting. Are they who they are? So that's the biggest problem. That's why people stay locked up in their little world using technology to cross that bridge. But that bridge doesn't really lead anywhere.
What do you think people are most afraid of? Because I think about this a lot, right? Because I'm in a martial arts community, I'm in an entrepreneurial community, I'm in all these different things that require me to go and be around other humans. And I have certainly been in that place where I found myself ostracized and alone and just kind of like behind the computer all day. And I've started doing this thing, I don't know, probably like a year ago, 2 years ago, where if I'm at a coffee shop, I just start saying hello to people around me. When I'm at lunch, I say hello to people around me. When I'm at dinner, especially if I'm by myself or I'm sitting somewhere and there's someone else alone, I will invite people to sit with me. And you know what's crazy? I've only ever had one person tell me no. And I've probably asked a couple hundred people, hey, I see you're alone. I'm alone. Do you want to like have lunch together? And out of all of that, I've only ever had one person say no. And I think that I am not particularly afraid of other humans. But what is it that's driving that fear for people? I know you mentioned the media, but is there something deeper there that maybe we need to uncover a little bit here?
I think the general state of the world, all the uncertainty, what goes on in the US, or if you want to expand that, what goes on around the world, the general mistrust is just safer to stay in your seat. No harm can definitely come to me if I'm just talking to somebody through the screen, sending text messages, and you don't really realize that you may not be sending text messages to the person you're thinking you're sending text messages because he or she may look totally different and be totally different. The whole thing may be a scam. But you still, nonetheless, you're in a safe environment from your perspective because you're at home. That is why you feel safe. And people are, because they think they can create this safe environment, they're afraid to leave their comfort zone. And I am curious, I never had lunch with you or probably never was at the same restaurant at the same time as you were. Nobody ever, I often go out by myself and nobody ever told me, why don't you join me? I have to be honest myself, I didn't ask anybody to join me either. But I'm just surprised that people still do that. And I'm even more surprised that, as you were saying, almost 100% success rate in terms of acceptance. So, me, in all honesty, I'm not sure what my answer would have been had you come up and asked me. I would be probably, I wonder what he wants from me. What does he want to scam me? Or why does he want to have lunch with me? He doesn't even know me. etc., etc. So I guess I am one of those guys who is afraid of meeting strangers, even in a lunch, in a coffee shop, whatever environment, because people don't come up to you. So, if this was a regular thing, everybody would be used to it. But what you're doing is unorthodox, to use a word like that. And, and it's interesting to see people's reaction. And you're saying you have great reactions. Yet, have anybody else ever come up to you, just to reversing what you're doing? Has anybody asked you to join them for lunch?
No, it's never actually happened, which is really funny because I think about that a lot. And it actually started the very first time I ever did this was about 10 years ago. And I was in Thailand and I was walking to this restaurant after a monsoon because it was monsoon season. And so I'm on this little island called Koh Phangan, and I'm walking to the only restaurant that I can see within walking distance. And there happened to be another woman sitting in that restaurant at the same time. No one else was in there because this massive storm had just come through. And I said, "Hey, do you want to have dinner with me?" And she said yes. And we ended up sitting and chatting for like 3 hours during this storm. And she had an amazing story, told me about her husband and her family and her kids and why she was there. And I was telling her about my journey where we were. And it was just so cool. It was such a great experience. I felt like in that moment, this is why I did it, because I felt like in that moment, it would have been more awkward to have two people sitting separately in a restaurant where there's only two people versus having dinner and someone potentially saying no. And so I just kind of carried that over into my life over the years. And I think that it's tough because, people are afraid of rejection. And I think that's kind of the heart of it.
Okay, let me ask you another question. In your experience, I was assuming the US, but apparently your first experience was outside the US. So if you're still doing that and you say are you in the US or you generally do it in the US? Because obviously different people have a different culture or response to your question. In Asia, it's obvious that you're not Asian. Perhaps they're more interested in you because you're not Asian. So my question is, because my original assumption was that this was taking place in the US. Let me rephrase it. How many people have you asked in the US to join you for lunch or dinner?
Yeah, tons. And I think one of the things that we see, and this person in Thailand, she was German actually, which, German people have this preconceived notion of being very stoic, and that may be true. I've met many German people over the years, but she was very open and kind and warm. But in the States, when it happens is we're so consumed with our phones and with our laptops and with, all the things happening. Even the other day, I was on a walk and I just saw everyone was buried in their phone. And I just keep thinking to myself, like, this thing, I had this idea the other day. What if, how your phone shows you screen time at the end of the week?
Yes.
What if it showed you at the end of the year how much time you had used? And then on your deathbed, it showed you how much time you had used. And it's like some people are going to have 12.5 years of their life on social media, which isn't actually social anymore. And as AI starts to come in, it's going to get even less social. And so what I'm wondering is, when we're looking at what is happening and the massive number of people increasingly who feel this loneliness, what are they doing? I guess it's weird to say what are they doing wrong because it's so social, but what could they be doing differently? What are the things in their life that they should be considering on the daily basis? Because, you mentioned comfort zone and people feeling safe. Does friendship require being uncomfortable and slightly I don't want to say out of safety because that'd be weird, but what does it actually require for you to go out and be a part of the human species these days?
Yes, basically, I then think that it has to do with what you need to do to make friends. It's just that people are used to going out. Even if they go out in a group, they each have their own devices. So my question is, if you're on your whatever device, what did you bother to go out in the restaurant in the first place if you're not chatting with the individuals that you are with. So even if you pretend to be in a social environment, meaning outside your home with a group, you're still not. You're still focused on your device. But I think slowly it is changing. At least here in the US, there's a deplug movement or an unplug movement. I don't know if that sort of reached you or not. It is slowly changing where you can only enter a bar or go hiking with groups if you leave your device at home. So people are slowly realizing that the only way this will change and make sure that you are within a group is if you leave your phone or whatever at home or switched off if you go to a bar and it's just locked up. And if you Google either deplug or unplug, that's a new kind of trend that's slowly emerging in the States, but it is very early. The only reason I'm aware of it because I follow these types of events. So, but it's getting there. People are realizing that they're losing part of their humanity in some sense because humans supposed to interact with each other, and you're not. You're interacting with a device.
That's new to me. I could see it though. I think consciously there are certain things where I do not take out my phone when I'm out to dinner or drinks or on a date. And in fact, if I'm on a date and someone takes out their cell phone, I'm just like, oh, this is definitely not going in the direction I want it to, right? I think that in business meetings, I don't take out my phone, and podcasts like this moment, it's not and so I think that a big part of it is self-control. And obviously these things are built to just constantly give you dopamine hits between the notifications, between the colors, the lights, the sounds, the haptic feedbacks. It is an addiction-making machine. I guess it's last year, I saw this girl, she was probably like 9 or 10, through this insane temper tantrum when her mom took her iPad away when they were at a restaurant. I happened to be in the restaurant also. And my thought was, that's an addict behavior response. Like, that's not a healthy, normalized, socialized child's response to having a entertainment device taken away from them. And so let's talk about this unplugging, this deplugging a little bit. First off, what does it really mean? And and obviously I know you're not an expert in it, but it's something that you have more knowledge in than I do. And I think it'd be beneficial to those listening. Where do you begin to unplug? Like, what does that actually look like? And how do you handle the lack of dopamine and that addictive response people are having? Like, if you have any insight to that, I would love to hear your thoughts.
I just read articles. I haven't personally participated in an activity. Basically, in terms of going to bars or clubs, you literally, they lock up the devices. I know some schools in Europe, they lock up your device as well so that you don't have access during the school hours to your phone or whatever else. And it's the same kind of mentality. And going into that, so it's nothing strange. It may be strange, but not strange to them because that is why they picked that place, because they know that nobody will have a cell phone with them, and they're not restricting it to bars or clubs. They are also saying, hey, your activity is hiking or whatever. You need to, don't have your phone or have it turned off. And I think it's more like the sort of millennials and the younger people who sort of reversing the trend, because when they grew up, these phones were already in existence. When I grew up, they were not. So they're rebelling, perhaps, if that's a good word, as teenagers often do, against the way society is handling this phenomena. And they're saying, well, we don't want this. When we want to talk to real people, obviously it's a very minority, but as I said, Google the word deplug. That's the official trend name, so to say. And they was sort of also got unplugged, but it's really sort of deplug. And it's a good trend, but again, will take probably at least a decade to manifest itself in any real numbers. So there are people who realize that they're not living in the real world And basically, that's what they're trying to do. Stop that and go back to the real world, which many people are avoiding.
Yeah, I think most people are avoiding it. I mean, I even have my moments, trust me. And I just turned 40 and I'm the first generation where it's like we had computers around from the beginning. I was the first group. I mean, we had computers in preschool. I'm 4 years old in preschool. I'll never forget. We were the first to have computers at home that had internet connection. We were the first to have cell phones in high school. And we were my sister, who's a little bit older than me, she had a landline phone in high school. It was a family phone. Nobody had their own. I had one because I had a job and I was hustling and doing my thing. And I bought a cell phone when I was 18. And I was one of the first people in my group of friends to have a cell phone, right? And so it's just one of those things where the technology for me and my group, we're the first to have it forever. And I see the addictions happening. And I've had to catch myself. There's a couple of things that I do that have been really effective for me. And I hope I can give some guidance to some folks listening here who might be like, yeah, I know that this phone and this lack of social connection, which we're going to talk a little bit more about, is a problem. One, my phone does not have notifications on. But what I did do is I set up the people in the do not disturb who can get through no matter what. So I have a handful of people that no matter what, day or night, they can message me. My phone is in either night mode or in black and white at all times. This was a putting it in black and white I learned from my friend Damon. He taught me this and I was like, that's crazy. I didn't know that was a thing. Huge on your dopamine receptors. Then I try not to watch media on my phone. Like if I actually want to watch something like YouTube, I have it on my phone, I have it on my computer, on my television. And that tends to help a lot. But also the other parts of it is that I've learned that sometimes you have to parent yourself and you have to limit the amount of time that you're allowing yourself to be on screens. And I think those are all things that might be able to help people because there is this epidemic of loneliness that's happening because people feel this false narrative of connectedness via these devices. We know that there's no connectedness. Someone holding your hand in real life is not the same as someone being like, I wish I could hold your hand in a text message. It's just not. And so one of the things I think that'd be helpful, what are some of the effects that we're seeing on people's mental and physical health by being lonely, by being ostracized, by being, addicted to their phones? What are you seeing happening in the world?
Basically, 60 or 70 million in the US people say that they're alone, which to me means nobody's proud of it. So 60 to 7 million people admit it's probably more like 80 in reality. Also, a lot of people, I think, got forced into a situation because of COVID. They are working from home. I was always working from home ever since I was a teenager. So it was a choice for me. I mentally got used to it, and I'm fine with that. Some people who always worked in a social environment, even if they just met somebody and spent 10 minutes, chatting over coffee, you don't have that. So your work social environment for a lot of people have disappeared. And as a result, which I was surprised about when I was doing some research on this, I thought, yeah, obviously depression, mental effects, all that is pretty much easily understood and accepted. But you actually get physical manifestations from high blood pressure and stuff. To me, that was really strange because you go in and work in a bad mood, whether not in, but at home. It's costing about $150 billion on the economy because people are not as efficient, whether they are at home or at the work environment, as they could be because of their mental state. So COVID forced people to be at home because they could be at home in terms of technology. If COVID hit 50 years ago, I don't know what the solution would have been, but I don't think the solution would have been go home because nobody could do any work 50 years ago, perhaps from home. So it's the technology combined with the pandemic that forced people to be able to work from home. As a result, even we are, I don't know, 3-4 years or 2-3 years after the pandemic, many companies realize that it is maybe more financially beneficial for them, smaller office, no coffee consumed, no snacks, maybe in some respects more efficient because there are no co-workers to talk to, etc. So a lot of puzzle elements came together to put us where we are today. It's technology, COVID, and as you said, you're the first generation who was born with that technology. And I don't think things will get better with AI and all that because your so-called friend will even be more friendly.
Yeah, and I think AI, it's fascinating, right? Because AI, I've been thinking about this a lot recently because we're using 5 to 7 different AI technologies in the business right now. And here's the thing, we have not gotten rid of anyone on our team. We have a full staff. We still are, everyone has a job. And I have just come to AI is a tool, but it is not a solution. And I think that one of the things that I'm especially afraid of and I'll speak to this from the mental health for single people especially, is I think AI is going to disrupt relationships in a way that we don't even understand yet. Where you talk about, if you think loneliness is bad now, in 10 years, I think it's going to be even worse. There was a research study that came out recently.
The new Wegovy pill is now available through Weight Watchers. Powerful GLP-1 results in a simple pill at the lowest price available. And with Weight Watchers, you can get doctor support and personalized nutrition programs. See if you qualify at weightwatchers.com. Ad not reviewed or approved by Novo Nordisk.
Hey, Sal.
Hank, what's going on? We haven't worked a case in years.
I just bought my car at Carvana, and it was so easy. Too easy.
Think something's up?
You tell me. They got thousands of options. Mm-hmm. Found a great car at a great price.
Uh-huh.
And it got delivered the next day.
It sounds like Carvana just makes it easy to buy your car, Hank.
Yeah, you're right. Case closed.
Buy your car today on
Carvana.
Delivery fees may apply.
If you're a podcast host, listen up, this one's for you. My name is Allie Jackson. I'm the host of Finding Mr. Height, a dating and relationship podcast that I've been doing for 4 years now, sharing my positive and practical approach to dating that's built on my own life experience. And I wanted to share another experience that I've had, my secret behind monetizing my show. It's called Red Circle, and I was just telling my colleague about how much I love their platform. With Red Circle, not only am I getting a seamless hosting experience, but I also love the support I receive in ad sales. It's not just typical ad sales either. It's targeted opportunities based on my show and my life. And the platform is super simple. You just set your preferences and Red Circle matches you with sponsors that align with your show. You can vet every opportunity and their platform gives you great analytics. More recently too, my Red Circle team has brought me opportunities outside of my podcast on social media to really augment the podcast partnerships, bring them full circle. I just can't recommend them enough. If you want to give it a try, go to redcircle.com to get your free trial. That's redcircle.com for a free trial.
And we are on pace that by 2035, 60+% of individuals will be single and unmarried over the age of 30. 65%. That's crazy. And then now you have to go, okay, well, what does that mean for suicide? What does that mean for self-harming? What does that mean for addictions? What does that mean for all of these things? And then the technology is becoming so unbelievably vast where now you can have intimate relationships with robots who are connected to AI. And you're like, well, do I need a girlfriend? Do I need a boyfriend? Right. And then you have AI kind of mapping out your entire life in the day to day where it's like, maybe I don't need a team member. Maybe I don't need to go anywhere ever because delivery happens in 3 minutes instead of 3 hours. And there's no reason for me to walk around the corner because I hook myself up to the desk and I just walk here all day. And I think that there's a lot of, I mean, obviously I'm very pro technology. I'm like, give me the implant. Like I'm ready. I'm one of those kind of people. But I also am not going to give up going to do martial arts and going to the clubs that I'm a part of and going to the events and dinners that I enjoy. And I think that we have to encourage people to still be human. And I think that we live in a very tricky time to be a human. I would argue, and Gabor, I think that obviously you have some age and some experience on me, and I would love to know your insight, but I would argue, even though this is the best time and safest time to be alive ever, murder rate is down, violent crime statistics are down, so on and so forth. It's still in my opinion, the hardest time ever to be alive. I don't know. What are your thoughts? You've got a little bit more experience than I do. I mean, obviously we're not in the middle of, some catastrophe that's happening worldwide as we have been, but I think the technology has just made it almost impossible to be a person.
Exactly, and I would call it a catastrophe. So it may not manifest itself as a physical thing. Give you an example. When I was, I don't know, 8, 10 years old, I did something bad. I got grounded, which meant I couldn't use my bike. Today, it's the opposite. You send out your kids to use their bike, to be away from their screen. So what was a punishment at my childhood? Hey, you did this, that, whatever. You're not going to be able to ride and meet with your friends on the bike. Now that bike usage, or what used to be a punishment, turned out to be maybe a punishment in a different sense, that you're punished because you're in front of your screen all day. I don't know. I have a teenage daughter, and in some respects, I'm scared for her, not because of the war or type situation, which was 60, 70 years ago in Europe. I am more scared what technology will do to human beings. And just like nobody realized what a pandemic will do, because there was no pandemic for the past 100 years, give or take in the world. Prior to that, I am concerned that we have let the genie out of the bottle. And where will that leave? You talk about virtual AI. Yes, in 5, 10 years' time, that AI will manifest itself in terms of robots in your home. So you are even more under the perception that you have a friend because somebody is physically in your house. Okay, it's a robot, but it's still better than just a screen person. So that's the direction. And people don't realize that the impact they have on their health, on their physical, on their mental health, that we are genetically encoded to meet with real people. We got together in tribal groups, etc. And the robot will even more replace the real person, because with a real person, you may actually argue and you may disagree. With a robot, the robot will never argue. It's programmed to agree and support you. So, you're going to live even in a more false bubble than you're living today, because you're not going to be able to have a truly different perspective on whatever you happen to be arguing on.
I mean, that's true. Yeah. It's funny because that I never connected those dots. Now it's funny. The punishment is go ride your bike. That's such a crazy thought to have. And it's interesting too, because just last night I was on a walk. It was like 5 p.m. I'm on the West Coast right now. The weather's absolutely beautiful, even though it's the spring. And I didn't see a single child in the entire neighborhood. And I'm in a neighborhood with 1,000 homes, probably somewhere in that window. It's a very large neighborhood. That might be a lot more than actual, but that's a large neighborhood. I didn't see a single kid, not one kid being outside. And I remember when I was young, like, we weren't allowed to be in the house. And I have to think like that has to socially isolate children as well, because there is something about getting in trouble that I think is necessary for kids. You know what I mean?
The childhood.
Yeah.
And you get into trouble, I think, as today's kid as well, spending too much time on your device, looking at inappropriate content on your device. So it's not that you don't get into trouble, you just get into a different kind of trouble.
Yeah, that's very true. So now we're in this window of time that I think that the decisions that we're starting to make on the individual level are vastly important, because from business perspective and from and I don't work in the government, but I can make my own assumptions. From a government perspective, like, they want you on your phone. They want you connected to the internet. They want you disconnected from your freedom of choice and your freedom of thought. And they want you to not be in friends group and socially isolated and taking 400 prescription drugs and not taking care of yourself. There's something to the business of that, especially in America. And I think more people are waking up to it. I don't know if you've seen this stat, but recently a stat came out that the average alcohol consumption in America is down like 30%, which is unbelievable. I mean, you talk about disrupting an industry because this is the positive side of the technology is we get data, we get knowledge, we get information. You know, people used to think it was okay to like smoke cigarettes when you're pregnant. And now if you saw a pregnant person smoking cigarette, you'd be like, you're the dumbest person I've ever seen in my life, right? And so, but that's how people will look at cell phones, you know, in 30 years. We'll go, man, those people were so dumb. Look at them staring at this little box all day long while they're missing out on opportunities for friendships and connection. So with us being in that space and us recognizing now's the time for us to take control, where do we begin? What are the things that we actually need to start doing to move into this place of actually connecting with other humans?
Most importantly, I think, leave your home. Get out. If that's your comfort zone, get out of your comfort zone. As you said, you haven't seen anybody around you riding a bike. And basically because they're all sitting at home watching their screen. And first, you know, nobody's going to help you unless you're willing to help yourself. You can only accept or expect help if you're willing to help yourself as well. So you need to take the first step, which is join activities that you enjoy, that's in your neighborhood, that is outside of your home. Perhaps if you're always interested in doing something, this is a good time to see how good of a fit that activity is. If you continue to sit at home in front of your screen, your life will not change. Not change for the better, it probably will change for the worse because you'll get various physical and mental illnesses. So figure out what you want to do, figure out what you enjoy or what you want to try out, and find people in your neighborhood who enjoy the same activities.
Yeah. Now, here's what's interesting, because there's an irony in that, right? Because in today's society, there's no community bulletin board up on a wall somewhere. Like, you have to like get on your phone and go and find the things, right? So it's funny because the irony is that. And I know that there's a lot of sites in the world where people can connect and find a way to parlay. But I know that you're also working on something really special, which is a big part of why I wanted to have you on as well. And I'd love for you to kind of talk about what it is that you're building right now and the way that you're helping people become more connected in the real world.
Yes, it's something ironic past that what we're using technology is to download our app called Friending, but that's when the technology part ends in that respect. Friending is designed to meet people outside of your home, in your neighborhood. The problem with other friending or dating app is that they're forcing you to send messages back and forth and really keeping you online. In friending, you can only send a maximum of 10 messages between the two people. And after that, one of you have to send a friend request. And that friend request means that you're meeting somebody in a real person, probably at a coffee shop or somewhere else. But the only way you are becoming friends with the other person is if your phones are next to each other. So you need to meet. Physically meet in the word traditional sense of the word. And that is we are hoping to use technology so you get connected, but then we are hoping that you will get off the technology in some sense and find activities together that are not related to technology. And that is the crucial difference. And because you're meeting in person, we also verify each individual using a third-party app called Persona. Getting back to the earlier part of the conversation, we're trying to make this as safe and as comfortable as possible. And should you meet in a coffee shop and still feel uncomfortable, there are safety features built in, like tapping the screen 3 times if your app is open. That will either call the police, call a friend, or just alert anybody with the app in the neighborhood. So we're trying to make it safe because we verify people. And even though you may feel uncomfortable, there's still a way to find help if you are uncomfortable at the time you meet for the first time. But the crucial thing is meeting in person. That's because we verify people, there are no fake profiles. There are no bots because you're verified with your driver's license, with your ID. So there's no two ways about it. This is how you look. You're not an 18-year-old blonde, that's at least you're not saying you are, and maybe not blonde and not 18 at all. And exchanging messages or chats, basically, then you ghost the person, already created an emotional bond between you and that other person who suddenly decided to ghost you. So there's a lot of implications about fake profiles, even though you never end up meeting, of course, because that's the whole point of the fake profile. The person has still built an emotional bond, some kind of mental picture of how you look like. And that's what we're avoiding by making sure that you look like the way that you say you do, because you're verified with your driver's license. So I think that's why Friending app is different from all other dating app, because all other apps, and I don't want to name any, they constantly say, hey, everybody move aside, only come back once you've been verified. So because we're building this app from the ground up, we have very little users, and you can only become users once you've been verified. And the 1.0 version we launch in March.
That to me is very exciting, because here's I think one of the big mistakes people make is they try to force people to meet them at the thing that they want to create instead of meeting people at the way that they use technology, right? And I mean, I am an app-based human. We have my team and I, we use all the apps you could ever imagine to form and function and flow of the day-to-day for my own personal life, for my health, for my everything runs that way. And I think that I love the ideas when I'm out at the coffee shop sometimes and you see a flyer on the wall and you're like, that's cool, but people don't operate that way anymore. They need a hub of a place where they can go and actually build and find the connections. And I think that can be really scary for people too. And that's why I love that you have a verification process there, because that's why I don't do dating apps. So I've been on them before, and all the time I'm just like, this is such a horrible waste of time, because you don't know if somebody's actually the person that they say that they are. And I remember once, this is when I decided I was going to quit. It was a year ago or so. I matched with someone, we're chatting, and I'm not a hard person to discover who I am and what I do. This podcast has been around 10 years. I've got books. We've got, I'm all over the place speaking on the road. Turns out this person who I matched with actually knew who I was before, because of what I do as a career. And that's fine. That's going to happen. Not a big deal. But we got to the point where I was like, hey, why don't we go grab a coffee and have a chat, meet up? And I noticed that their profile was not verified on this app. And I said, hey, I can't meet you unless you verify yourself. Because just like anyone who's trying to find a friend, especially in dating, I want to know that you are who you say you are. If I meet you in real life, that's a little bit different, right? If I meet you in this app, okay, I want to have confirmation. And I said this to them. I said, hey, I'd love to meet you, but you need to verify. I just need to know you are who you say you are. Because look, I've had a stalker before, and that is a real thing, and it is not a fun experience, and I do not want to walk down that path again. It's a couple messages back and forth, they delete their profile and block me. And I was like, oh, that's really interesting, because my guess is they probably aren't who they were pretending to be. And that to me just ruined dating apps forever. I'm just like, I'm done. I just don't want to deal with this anymore. But with what you're doing and the way that you've set this up, I think verifying people first is brilliant. I think it's a requirement. I think all of these apps should have that requirement. If we have to walk through freaking TSA and our face gets scanned 700 times before we get on an airplane, and we think that's the height of security, how do we not bring that into the technology of connecting with other humans? So first, I love that. Secondly, what are people doing when they're meeting? Like what's the ideal scenario? Is it to actually have long-term friendship? Is it just to grab a coffee? Like what's the goal for people when they're coming into this program and this app with you?
It's different. It depends what their own goal is. We have what we call "Are you in" cards, which means basically, are you into that activity? So it's not just meeting friends in your neighborhood, which is set currently to 50 miles, because we're assuming you're not going to go further to meet a friend than 50 miles. And you also say what activity you're into, whether it's tennis, volleyball, having a coffee, just walks or whatever. So you have these "Are you in" cards into various activities. And later on, actually, we'll actually have probably in Q3, Q4, physical "Are you in" cards, which is linked to the app. So we're trying to move away from the app in some respects and do physical versions of whatever we can, because the whole where you perhaps just meet with a friend and go to the market and let's see who discovers a bottle on the stand first or whatever. So there will be little activities on each card that you would need to do. And on the app version, you just put in whatever you like, what you're into, and find friends who are into the same activity. And we really believe in friendship as the key human element in terms of what the essence of humanity. And because you probably, let's say, meet in a coffee shop, we also sell coffee online. But what's special about our coffee, other than being a great coffee, is that you can send a message. When you order the coffee online, it will ask you to type in that message. That message appears as a QR code on the packaging. So when I send it to you saying, "Hey, thank you for the podcast," you scan the QR code with the app and you get my message. So it's a really good way to send a thank you note as well. We're trying to also extend that we'll give people credit if that person stayed overnight at your place, because perhaps you went fishing or something and you don't spend the whole day fishing and you don't get back. So if you allow people to stay overnight, you get sort of additional credits for that, because I think you made the extra effort to build a relationship, a friendship. So that's our essence. Basically, it's real life activities, real life friendships, rather than virtual, screen time.
Yeah, I think those are great ideas. And I think so many times that we forget that the essence of the human experience is connectedness, is going fishing, is going on the bike ride, is going bowling, is, maybe we had a couple drinks and we're hanging out too late and let's be safe about it. And there's something, it's weird because I think people can get turned off by being human. I see this thing that's happening where people are like, it's so weird that you would want to do a human experience thing with me. And I'm like, well, that's what we do. We're human. We're people. We connect. We bond. We go and try new restaurants. And here's what's weird, man. I find that people are really open to do that in dating, but they're not so open to do that in friendships. And I have this core group of guy friends that over the years, our whole thing has been, we have this guys' night, and it depends on who's around and who's traveling in the country and what's happening, because it's just life. But we've always made a good effort. We have group chats and we talk a lot and we are connected a lot and we've done things together. And I will say this, because I think this is really important. Too many people, this kind of circling back to the beginning of our conversation, too many people wait for someone to say hello to them at the coffee shop. And it's like, you got to take control of your own future. And what I love about an app like this is it gives you the ability to do that seemingly without the in-person rejection that most people fear. And I think that that's the biggest barrier of entry for people creating relationships or friendships or business or whatever that is. There's fear. They're so afraid to be judged and be told you're not enough. But what I've discovered is if somebody tells you no and they reject you, it has nothing to do with you and has everything to do with them. So I'm curious before I ask you my last question, I want to ask this question because it's really top of mind for me. How do you get people through the potential rejection of this experience with you?
I think the fact that, maybe ironic, but the fact that it's not face to face may help to cope with that initial rejection. But I turn it around. It may help to open up as well. Because it is not face to face, the rejection is less hurtful. They may think, well, okay, fine, I'll just move on. But I think because the other person is also on the app, that also makes it easier to communicate with, because he or she is looking for exactly the same thing, looking to connect with somebody. So rather than your example of randomly going up to a person in a coffee shop where you have no idea, who he is or what he wants, you are aware that this person is looking for a connection with another person to do something. And that opens the door for either side to approach.
Yeah, that's a great point. I love that. This has been a great conversation, and obviously I want to put people in contact with you and so they can learn more, and definitely grab the app when you drop this next release. So before I ask you my last question, where can everyone find you and learn more about friending?
The easiest way, if they go to friending.com, you can download the app. The app currently is iOS only, but you can read messages. If you have an Android phone and you get a coffee with a barcode on it, you can download the Android version, which will only currently read the barcode and let you know what your message is. So it's iOS only dominantly for the main part of friending. Hopefully by the end of the year, there will be an Android version as well, and it's friending.com. I don't think it's possible to forget. It's a friending app on friending.com.
Love it. And I love that it's 100%. I just popped to the site just because I was on here the other day, and I just love the idea that it's for verified people who actually want to meet in real life. Because I think about this, moving to a new city, moving to a place you've never been. Maybe you're on vacation in a city you haven't been. Like, people want to meet each other. It's great. It's so true to me because I've just experienced it so many times. So I'm encouraging people, put yourselves out there, go make some new friends. Guess what? The internet's still going to be there, and you don't want to be the person on your deathbed looking at your phone and it told you, congratulations, you were on Instagram for 12.5 years. Like, I don't know about you, but that's just not how I want to live my life. So with that said, my friend, my last question for you, what does it mean to you to be unbroken?
I guess to me that means alone, because as a human being, I am broken by not being part of any community. So I encourage anybody who agrees with me to solve that issue for themselves.
Love it. Well, my friend, thank you so much for being here. Unbroken Nation, guys, thank you for listening. If today's episode and conversation brought you any value, share it with a friend because it may impact their life for the better. And until next time, my friends, be unbroken. I'll see ya.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for listening to Think Unbroken. Please share this episode with someone who could use it and help us move forward in our mission of ending generational trauma in our lifetime. And if you would, please take 5 seconds to pop on iTunes or Spotify, hit that 5-star, leave a review, and you can also reach out to us on social at Michael Unbroken or at Think Unbroken. And of course, you can check out our YouTube channel at Think Unbroken. Thank you for being a part of Unbroken Nation, my friends, and until next time, be unbroken.